Weebit Nano have emerged from their trading halt. The details of their placement has come to market and they're officially welcoming in institutional investors to the register. You might be wondering, what does this capital raise mean? You might have seen some of the details and maybe you've got the question about who are institutional investors and why is it so highly regarded when institutional investors come on board for a company. Today we're going to answer all of that and we'll provide an update into the ASX WBT story and then talk about where they'll head from here. It truly has been a transformative past period for Weebit Nano, both on the technical front, with the discrete memory discussions, as well as, of course, the embedded memory module continuing to advance. On the commercial front, this first commercial agreement with Skywater has now officially been inked, and there's continued progression as well across the sector. It's a fascinating time. We'll be discussing it all. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. We make daily videos as well, so if you're new here, make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on so you won't miss any of our daily episodes. So before we explore the story about why institutional investors and what are the funds going to be used from Weebit's current placement, it makes sense for us to explore some of the specifics surrounding it. So we can see that there's just over 25 million Australian dollar placement going to 4 different institutional investment and pension funds. Significantly, each of these have got substantial technology investment experience. We know that Israel is a hub as well for technology. Many great companies have come out of there. So this experience, of course, is going to be invaluable. Along with that as well, on top of that, there's a $9 million non-renounceable entitlement offer. It's on a 1-to-41 basis for current investors, and the date of record for that will close on November 15th, this upcoming Monday. As you can see here, MyTav Dash is a major institutional fund. They're cornerstoning this raise. Of course, having a cornerstone investor is significant. It's going to be bringing some validation to the register. We'll talk about why it's more important later on in the video. There's a range of different use cases for these funds, and Weebit have provided a list which we'll talk about later on in the video. But really what it helps to do is underpin the accelerated growth moving forward. We know that Weebit has a top-of-class technology. Of course, ReRAM is eventually hoping to look to displace and really provide an alternative solution to the incumbent flash memory technology. So being able to scale as rapidly as possible, continuing to roll out on the embedded front, and of course, continue to focus on the R&D front for the discrete memory side is going to be important for the story. And really building and instilling that confidence as well. Weebit's board will support both of the offers and some of the directors will actually participate in the offer as well. Before we dive in, a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. Nothing we discuss on the channel is financial advice. The stocks we cover, of course, are not buy recommendations. These videos are just here as a general discussion to be a starting spot for you to do your own research from. So I guess the first question on the list, why do instos matter? I'm sure you would have heard the word insto thrown around before, but who actually are institutional investors? So institutional investors are entities or organizations who invest money on behalf of their clients or their members. So of course, there's a range of different funds that will come under the banner of institutional investors, but some of the major ones you would have considered, such as hedge funds, mutual funds, pension funds, and insurance companies, would all be classed as instos. There's a range of different benefits that institutional investment into a company, particularly an early stage company, can bring. I think first and foremost, it brings validation to the commercial offering. Of course, in the earlier stages, when you move from concept through the R&D phase and then eventually you move towards commercialization, there's still questions about how is this technology, is there a use case for it, and what does the market think? Having institutional investors who have got big research houses, who've got significant experience in the sector, brings that validation to the technology and to the offering and to what you're trying to do. It will help with negotiations and discussions with other potential commercial partners for future agreements. And along with that as well, we know that institutional investment can help to drive further capital inflows. It brings that validation to potential retail investors who may be looking at it, but along with that as well, other institutional funds may be like, okay, these funds have spent their time doing research, they've decided to part with their money and get behind and back Weebit Nano. Is there something there that maybe it's worth us having a look at as well? We know that institutional investors have got significant research houses and they do prefer de-risk projects. Of course, their timeframes are longer term. They've got a range of different mandates as well surrounding their investments. So they prefer projects that are de-risked. So when they're willing to come on board and look at these types of projects, it really does bring that validation, as we've discussed, to Weebit's ReRAM opportunity that they're hoping to play into. Further to that as well, of course, it brings stability to the register. As we've mentioned, they've got much longer term timeframes. They're not going to be chopping and changing, looking to trade short-term positions. Institutional investors are generally there for the longer term. They want to take these positions and continue to grow and scale with the businesses that they get behind. Most importantly, the funds raised as well, $25 million plus will be raised with this placement, will help to accelerate company progression. There's a range of different dimensions that Weebit will be helping to progress on the back of it. We'd love to know your thoughts, so drop in a comment below what you think about this placement, what you think it means for Weebit Nano story, and where do you think ASX WBT head from here moving forward? So I guess the question is, there's nearly $35 million coming to Weebit Nano. Of course, I've got a significant number of options as well that will likely be exercised moving forward over this period that may end up with around $60 million available to use and really fund this next stage, transitioning from research and development through to commercialization. So we can see here there's a range of different factors that they're looking at. First and foremost, the top of the list, migrating Weebit's ReRAM technology to smaller geometries. We know, of course, the deal with SkyWater's at 130 nanometers. It's a very commonly used geometry and it's got a significant customer base available. But Weebit recently put out a major announcement surrounding the fact that ReRAM has the ability and potential to work at 28 nanometers. Of course, we know that the world continues to progress towards smaller and smaller geometries. These are becoming more important, and particularly as we move to smaller and more refined and complicated technologies, as Internet of Things technologies rolls out, as drones become more commonplace, and just a range of different technologies become more and more integrated with our day-to-day life, smaller nanometers will become more important. We've actually done a video on why geometries matter and why Weebit's 28 nanometer announcement was so significant. So we'll leave a link to that up above that you can check out after this one. On top of that as well, we know that the discrete memory opportunity is a huge one. Of course, they're focusing initially on the embedded memory market. It's their fastest route to market. They want to be able to get there, to be able to start to have revenue flowing through and to scale there. And then we know that the discrete memory market's in a few years' time. However, they're continuing to really develop and advance their technology on this front. We know the discussions that they've had surrounding the Selector, the first commercially available one in the industry. It's a major advancement, but the further and the faster that they can fuel growth in this area, the better for Weebit Nano story. So a significant allocation of funds will go towards that. And then we can see there's opportunities for improvement of the technology parameters, making Weebit's ReRAM even more robust. They do have a top-of-class technology, but of course they are still trying to prove the market and continuing to scale into this market. And as we've mentioned, Weebit have gone from concept through the research and development phase, which is not a straight linear process, but they're now standing on the verge of commercialization. And as a result of that, the types of focuses, the teams that you have, and the individuals working for you are different. The activities transition through to more marketing and sales focused activities. And there's a range of different things that they will have to do to help to facilitate and enable that. And the funds will be moving towards that as well. Weebit will now be well funded. They've got strong backing from institutional investors. Of course, retail investors will have the opportunity to get involved with a $9 million entitlement. So it'll be fascinating to see what's up next for the ASX WBT story. And I do think it is worth taking a bit of a step back as well and having a think about where is Weebit Nano positioned. We know that WBT last raised capital at the back end of 2020. For any of the investors who remember that period, it was a raise at $1.70. Of course, it seems like just yesterday really, but there's been significant advancements, not only in the share price, but most importantly in company progression on a range of different dimensions. First and foremost, we know that the SkyWater deal was a transformative one. The first fab agreement, the first commercial agreement for a semiconductor company truly is a milestone one. But along with that, there's been plenty of technological advancements as well. We have the 28 nanometer news that we discussed earlier. Of course, the final design verification and tape out of the embedded memory module test chip was a major tick as well. We know the ability to demonstrate the industry's first commercial integration of an OTS selector for the discrete memory market definitely raised a lot of attention across the industry as well. We saw plenty of articles coming out around that. Of course, I've continued to focus on their patent portfolio, their relationship with Leti, and developing the technology too. They look well positioned. They're on the verge of commercialization, but it looks like the building blocks are all starting to get into position now. So it's going to be interesting to see what's up next. We know that it's not as if you go from your first commercial agreement and you just immediately fall into wide-scale commercialization and volume manufacturing. There is a bit of a process, but the building blocks are now in place. Or as the CEO, Coby Hanoch, likes to say, the triangle is now starting to be assembled for Weebit Nano. And so Weebit's CEO has previously referred to a semiconductor triangle. Of course, at the top, you've got Weebit Nano with their top-of-class ReRAM technology that will hopefully help to facilitate new memory solutions and provide opportunities for customers as well as fabs to really transition into this next stage of the digital adoption. But on the other side, you've got two different sides of the triangles as well that need to be filled in. You've got the fabs who need to be eventually helping to manufacture and facilitate these products. But of course, you've got the product customers as well, who will eventually be embedding ReRAM's memory technology into their actual products. But the question is, How do you start these initial commercial agreements? The first ones are the hardest because if you're talking to fabs, the fabs will be like, this is fantastic, we can see a use case for the technology. However, who are the customers who are going to take that first step and get your memory technology embedded into their products? But on the other side as well, with the product customers, they might be like, okay, this is well and good, we can see a use case for it, but where are we going to get our products manufactured? So having this landmark deal with SkyWater, an IP licensing agreement where they're going to work together to really help to eventually, from technology transfer through to qualification and eventually move to volume production, it's a major step. Of course, it's a non-exclusive deal, so there is the opportunity for Weebit to continue to be having agreements with other fabs and potentially other product customers as well. But there's actually quite a nice dynamic between both WBT and SKYT as well, with the opportunity for Weebit to bring potential customers towards SkyWater as well, and SkyWater, of course, to provide Weebit's ReRAM as an alternative solution to the customers that SkyWater have, potentially as a point of difference in comparison to the conventional or the current memory solutions like Flash. So it's an interesting time. We know that, of course, technology transfer has to happen. Then the qualification process has to come through. There's a lot of wafers that have to come through. You want to be able to make sure that you can produce at volume, at scale, and consistently, because you can't have any defects or any concerns with that. So that process will take time, but Weebit are hoping to move eventually into volume production at the back end of next year. And of course, once qualification has been done, you're able to continue to roll out, and it makes discussions with other fabs a lot easier too. This is the first agreement for Weebit. It's a landmark one with SkyWater, but we know there's many probably concurrent deals or negotiations that are going on behind closed doors. So as ASX WBT investors will continue to watch for more agreements to come to market and the opportunities that could flow through to the Weebit Nano growth story as a result of that. And so then I guess the question is, what's next in the story? As we know, flash memory has got constraints and it struggles to be economically viable or efficient below 40 nanometer. We've discussed earlier that geometries are getting smaller and smaller over time. Of course, Weebit Nano has proven that their technology works at 28 nanometer, and the funds from this placement will continue to test and hopefully enable ReRAM to work at lower geometries. And we know that it has that scalability inherently attached to it. It is a fascinating, compelling offering. Of course, we know that with new technologies and the digital adoption that's picking up pace, new technologies will help to facilitate this. New memory solutions will have to be at the forefront of this digital adoption, and Weebit is hoping their ReRAM will be helping to lead the charge. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out as well. As mentioned, we make daily videos, so if you're new here, welcome to the community. Make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on so you'll be updated every time we drop a new video. We'll leave links up above to other interviews we've done in the semiconductor space if you are interested. Thank you so much for joining us. Drop in a comment, let us know your thoughts on the story. As mentioned, Weebit Nano is still relatively pre-commercialization. They're pre-revenue. They're likely to be more inherently speculative and more inherently volatile than your conventional blue chips. However, as they continue to advance on the technological front, as they continue to ink more commercial agreements, the project and the opportunity for ReRAM continues to be de-risked moving forward. It's a fascinating time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for joining us. And for now, stay well and happy investing.